So, all right. So I found out about Envision Resilience kind of by accident, and I've been really excited about it because all the work that we do to talk here at Climate Reality, a lot of what we talk about is how we can mitigate the climate crisis. But the truth is the climate crisis is really already here. We're experiencing it this summer. People all over the country are seeing it with the hottest July ever. And here in Vermont, where I'm on vacation, with a really wet summer that has been very dangerous and horrible flooding that has affected so many local communities. So it's really important that we also talk about what are we going to do to be more resilient. And that's what Envision Resilience is all about. We're really excited that they've chosen New Bedford and Fairhaven for their 2023 experience, whole experience. And so ReMain Nantucket is the organization that is doing this, and it's an island organization, and their mission is to bring creative thinking to environmental and community challenges, elevate local industry, and encourage innovation and resilience across the island through ReMain Nantucket and ReMain Ventures. And tonight we have two guest speakers. We have Claire and Charlotte. So there they are waving. So Claire Martin is project manager at ReMain Nantucket. Claire identifies and fosters opportunities for community-led coastal resilience collaborations, and she oversees day-to-day communications for ReMain Nantucket and ReMain Ventures. She's been managing the Envision Resilience Challenge program for the last 3 years, and prior to joining ReMain, Claire served as communications manager for Nature Bridge in California. We also have Charlotte VanVoorhis. Charlotte is the communications and social media coordinator for ReMain Nantucket and runs ReMain and Envision Resilience's social media accounts. And she graduated from Yale University in 2020 with a bachelor's in American Studies and sociolinguistics, and then spent 2 years in New York City teaching at the Windward School before then moving to Berlin, Germany, where she got to speak her second language every day and dedicate her time to writing. And Charlotte joined the Envision Resilience team in January 2023 and has been leading community engagement in New Bedford and Fairhaven. So thank you so much for being here with us tonight. I'm going to go ahead and mute and let the two of you share your screen and take it away.
Awesome. Thank you for helping us.
Yes, thank you, Laura. Charlotte is going to pull up our screen share. But in the meantime, Laura, thank you so much for having us. I think we connected, as you said, back in October or November, perhaps it was. And right away we said, she is a rock star. We need to connect with her. The exact kind of person that we need to work with for this kind of community engagement that we like to foster with the Envision Resilience Challenge. I'm not sure how you find the time to do all of the work that you do, but it's very impressive and it's very much appreciated. And thank you, everyone on this call tonight and those who will be watching the recording. The Climate Reality Massachusetts Southcoast chapter is incredibly impressive, and thank you all for the work that you do as well. So tonight, Charlotte and I are going to share with you a little bit about Envision Resilience, how the challenge came to be, where we're moving in our 3rd year, and how excited we are to be working in New Bedford and Fairhaven this year. The program is, this is a program of ReMain Nantucket, which Laura so greatly shared about in her introduction. And the Envision Resilience Challenge is a semester-long design studio that connects interdisciplinary university teams with coastal communities, right now coastal communities within the Northeast region, to inspire adaptive and creative solutions to the challenges of climate change. We began in 2021 in Nantucket, and in 2022, we took the design studio to Narragansett Bay, Rhode Island. We are now in our 3rd year and so excited to be in New Bedford and Fairhaven. And actually, before we do anything else, we're going to share with you this video because I think it does a really nice job in 90 seconds of showcasing the kind of work that we do. You'll hear some student voices, some faculty voices, and see some great footage of where we're working this year.
The goal of the Envision Resilience Challenge was to help jumpstart
a vision for the future on the premise that you have to imagine something before you can begin to work towards it.
We have to include that social element of the people. How is that going to strengthen the community that's there?
It's the equivalent of us having to hire 4 different consulting teams. People don't always conceptualize what 1 inch or 2 inches of sea level rise is, and the work product that the students have done is another way to convey that message. I mean, another way to tell the story. But at the same time, they're coming up with creative alternatives in terms of what could be done.
Working with a real community, we are able to understand what resilience means to them. And it really kind of drives home the idea that you can't just come up with these big pie in the sky type of ideas. You have to work with people and develop a plan that's true to their values. And I think Envision Resilience captures that perfectly.
Very soon. We're just actually a few weeks away from this fall start. So the design studio, the Envision Resilience Challenge, calls on student teams of both undergraduate and graduate students, students who are architects, landscape architects, urban planners, engineers, some environmental scientists, and artists, to reimagine the various social, ecological, economic, and climate issues embedded in communities, and thinking through these through design. So they spend a semester researching, really understanding and grounding themselves and connecting with the local history, the culture, the values, the social challenge communities, in order to then design these really out of the box, really innovative visuals for what our neighborhoods, streetscapes, and communities could look like in the face of sea level rise, but also the other impacts of climate and intersecting social issues. So I'm going to hand it over to Charlotte to tell you a little bit about where we began and where we're headed now.
Yeah, so like Claire said, the Envision Resilience Challenge started on Nantucket. We started planning for it in 2019 and 2020, and then in the spring of 2021, the first sort of experimental semester took place with 5 different landscape architecture and architecture teams from 5 different universities. After a semester of meeting with community advisors all through Zoom because of COVID restrictions, the students were finally able to come to Nantucket itself. Here's a photo of the final exhibition. At the end of the semester of all this hard work and designing that had gone on, the students were able to present their ideas to the community that they were designing for. And from the success that that exhibition was met with, from the continued enthusiasm, the team decided to, test this on the road. Let's go to Narragansett Bay and see what we can do over there. And so year 2 saw a few tests of the model for the challenge. We had more universities, more communities, more teams, multidisciplinary teams, from a journalism team and a business team to the traditional architecture and landscape architecture studio teams. All the groups worked in the different areas of Narragansett Bay, so the Port of Providence, Wickford, Warren, Barrington, Bristol, Aquidneck Island, all throughout Narragansett Bay, to see how these sort of generative student design thinking programs, or this kind of program, could apply to Narragansett Bay. There was another exhibition at the end of that semester. This is a photo of Senator Whitehouse meeting with the students. He gave some words of wisdom at the exhibition opening. And after year 2, working out some kinks, working out some wrinkles, the team said, you know what, we're tried and true. Let's go on to another community. So this year, we're so excited, like Claire said, to be in Fairhaven and New Bedford. We've already met with upwards of 100 or 120 community members like Laura, who have just been so enthusiastic, so supportive, and have had so many good insights into what makes these 2 communities tick and what their sort of unique issues and challenges are in the face of climate change. Running throughout the entire program is the thread of partner collaboration and community engagement. So we've engaged with, these are just a few examples of the groups that we've engaged with in each community. The entire list wouldn't be able to fit on one of these slides. And we've also done different sort of public art illustrations of the issues that we're talking about in our design studios. because art is such an important and potent way to deliver the news of climate change, but also in a hopeful way that we're trying to convey as well. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Claire to talk a little bit about why we do what we do.
So as Laura said when she introduced us, the whole idea of the Envision Resilience Challenge is to envision resilience. As Wendy, our founder, said in that video, you really have to imagine something before you can begin to work toward it. And we've seen that in real time within the Nantucket community through the conversations we've had over the last 2 years. We saw that in Narragansett Bay, and even the conversations we've had so far in New Bedford and Fairhaven. Being able to put yourself in your favorite park or on your favorite piece of coastline, in your favorite, corner of your neighborhood, and really think about and imagine, beyond kind of the fear around change. Change is hard, change is difficult, but to imagine something that could be potentially even more, whether it's more beautiful, more innovative, more, an increased access to recreation. There's increased biodiversity from some of these proposed projects. Maybe there's, they're more resilient physically, but maybe community wise as well. So, having students bring to the table visuals, really visionary, very bold, visions of what could be, we have found to be very productive in community conversations about how we move the needle forward, because we know that policy and regulation and zoning all takes a very long time to catch up. But the idea with this project is that, if we're here with policy and where we really need to be is somewhere in the middle, well, the student designs are way out here, and they allow us to kind of find that middle ground through this visualizing exercise. So the designs have been incredibly powerful. They're gorgeous visuals that they come up with, and there's a lot of research and community value woven into those outcomes as well. We do, people always say, well, what happens next? And where will these student designs go? Where will we see them? And the Envision Resilience Challenge is an exercise in academic thinking. So it's, it's not meant by any means to deliver shovel-ready projects in that dialogue, engage in that conversation, and move the needle forward. We found it to be quite successful, and it has actually inspired several projects in Nantucket and also in Rhode Island where we were last year. So that's just a great co-benefit of a program like this. The communities we worked in thus far, while we always went in through the lens of sea level rise, they have all addressed intersecting social issues that I think, affordable housing, there's not a community really nationally right now that is not looking very hard at affordable housing and dignified housing, and what does housing look like and what could housing look like as we begin to think about adaptation. Green energy, mobility, transportation, the transition from one industry to the next. When we think about clean energy, these are all intersecting issues that the students dive very deep into that shine through in their final deliverables and their final studio outcomes of these designs. And then, at the core really of our program, as we've continued to mention, is community engagement. This is why tonight's opportunity to meet with you all, connect you to our work, and hopefully remain engaged throughout this process is so critical. We really wouldn't have the outcomes that we've had over the last 2 years without the community engagement, and without those voices and feedback from the community. There's no sense in the student teams designing a coastline that doesn't reflect what someone from New Bedford or Fairhaven would like to see, or how they imagine themselves continuing to live in these communities into the future. So we make a real valiant effort to incorporate as many voices as we can. One of the ways we do that is put together a community advisory committee that is, now live on our website. So as Charlotte said, we've, dozens and dozens of people, lots of conversations over coffee at the Green Bean. I think we have some frequent fire cards there, a couple of them between the two of us, but we've got quite the list, and the community advisors are those who really have, the time and bandwidth to be involved more than just the one-off conversation. They might take students on a site visit of a certain location where they're studying. They might be able to pick up the phone on a Friday afternoon and answer a specific question about, local zoning in the Fairhaven pocket that one of the teams is looking at. So that's a huge piece of the program, and we've always really enjoyed connecting with community advisors in that way.
Yeah, we are so excited about the great group of schools we have this year. We're working with Howard University, Northeastern University, RISD, University of Florida, UMass Amherst, UMass Dartmouth, and University of Virginia. Of this group, 3 are returning schools. Northeastern and University of Florida have been with the program since the very beginning in 2021. And RISD was a participant last year. So we're thrilled that these, we have continued partnerships with these schools, and they keep wanting to come back, and they're just great to work with. And then this year we're thrilled to have 4 new partners in Howard, UMass Amherst, UMass Dartmouth, and UVA. And we're so excited about building and continuing these partnerships across Massachusetts and up and down the East Coast. Back to you, Claire.
Oh, and thank you, Laura. The advisor list is linked in the chat. Thank you for sharing that. Hopefully some faces you might see, and we're always looking for additional advisors as well. So feel free to reach out to us if you would like to be one, or if you know someone who could be a good fit. It's always helpful to share with you all the framework of our program. So these design studios are a semester in length, though as you'll see in the next conversation with Charlotte, our time spent in these communities is much longer than just a semester. But for the students themselves, it's a fall semester. So in the next 3 weeks, they'll all be starting their classes. And we really have the backbone of the semester because we have students who are, up and down the East Coast at these various universities. A lot of our work is done via Zoom. That's one of the great, things we've all come to discover in the last few years is that a lot. So we have this year a 6-week speaker series. We have some really incredible speakers who have given their time and will be giving lectures every other Monday for the student teams. We do record these lectures, and pretty immediately we post them to our website. So this is another way for any and all community members, people from the public, from any community interested in learning kind of in real time with the students can tune in once those recordings are live and posted to the website. And we just make sure to protect that student time for questions and conversation during the Zoom hour-and-a-half itself. But always encourage folks to follow those postings on our website and follow along that way. As I mentioned, the community advisors are really, really crucial to the student investigation and exploration of these communities. It's one thing to do the site visits, to do the research, to study, the maps and data and modeling and history, but to connect with community members who are on the ground doing this work is really what makes the difference in the really remarkable design outcomes that are, showcased at the end of the studio. There are site visits. Last year, during the first year, because of the constraints of COVID, it was pretty incredible to see what the students could accomplish without actually setting foot on Nantucket. That was a unique year because of COVID-19, of course. So last year we were able to reinstate these site visits that will be happening again this year. Probably sometime in mid-September. We're still working out dates with the various universities, but we'll have this at a certain cadence so that there is some overlap within the teams, because this is a huge benefit of the program, as well as this inter-collaboration between the universities and getting to work with one another. And so without inundating the communities with many students, we'll have those kind of staggered, but the opportunity for the students to connect to, which has always been just really fun to see amongst the programs. So we have a midterm review, and this is where we'll bring in some of our community advisors so that they can, very clearly advise the students on the direction they're taking their projects. They'll be at that kind of midway development, and they might hear a community advisor say, well, this is a great idea, but you probably didn't know that this specific park has this significance, and maybe rethink, tweak this direction you're going. So that's a really crucial point in the semester where they have an opportunity in real time to weave in community feedback, which is, also a great experience for when they're out in the real world, right? They need to be designing for what these communities want and what they need. And then we have a final jury review at the end of the semester where we bring in practitioners in the field who give about 5 to 6 hours of their time on a Zoom jury review. And this could even, this is kind of like a networking job interview opportunity as well for them. But the practitioners themselves have always found it, I think, really powerful. You know, it's a reminder to them who are, you know, kind of head down in their day to day to really step back and, you know, be visionary, be bold in their thinking for a moment, forget about the, you know, all that tethers them down with, yeah, that policy, zoning, regulation we always talk about, and really think bigger. So it's always been a nice moment with some kind of great sound bites always come out of that. And that's always recorded and available for those to tune into as well, for anyone who's interested to kind of see that process evolve.
Yeah, so our efforts in New Bedford and Fairhaven specifically began about a year ago at this point in September of 2022, where we had our first meetings on the ground in New Bedford and Fairhaven. Then in the winter, we sent out, or we called for some proposals from different universities and selected our teams that were then announced in about March, followed by a May faculty workshop where we invited all of the faculty to come and meet community advisors, tour the area of New Bedford and Fairhaven, and spend a few days getting to know each other as well as the location to enhance the process and the experience of this semester, since the faculty members will now be a little bit more knowledgeable about the area for their students and their questions. So before the semester even begins, we've completed about a year's worth of meetings and behind the scenes preparations. And I think, like Claire said, we are about 3 weeks away from the start of this semester, which is very exciting, which will run through December. And during the sort of winter in between semester phase of the year, we'll have different art, community engagement events, collaborations, and still be active in New Bedford and Fairhaven. And then culminating with a student exhibition displaying all of the student designs in the spring of 2024. So what seems on the surface like just one semester is going to end up being an almost 2-year endeavor. And we're super excited about that extended time to get to know our partners and to get to know the area a bit more. And speaking of student designs, these are some of the examples. These are our, we're very proud of all the student work that has gone into the past 2 years. And these are some examples of the student designs from the 2021 Nantucket challenge. And you can see that the student designs take a lot into account of public spaces, intergenerational use of those spaces, using clean energy, living with the water, and living with each other, living with your neighbors in a harmonious and healthy way for everyone. Down below, we have a few more examples of the 2022 Narragansett Bay Challenge designs. These are a bit more urban and industrial based on the location that they're in, but also take into account, there's 3 or 4 or 5 bikes in all of these. Lots of community living, taking care of your neighbors, living with the water, and enjoying all of the outdoor spaces that these great spots have. So these are the examples of the products that will come from the design studio, and we're super excited to see what the students come up with in a few months for New Bedford and Fairhaven.
There was some church bells ringing. I had gone on mute. So as we've said, the community engagement piece, the rollout of all of the student work is really the fun part. And I think, hopefully this is where some of you all on the call might want to engage or follow along. Public art is, we have found to be a really powerful way to kind of connect with people and meet them where they're at. While some folks maybe move to action by looking at a chart of rising sea levels, I think that there are a lot of people who resonate with, art or music or visualization of that heavy topic around sea level rise or climate, and science for that matter. So we'll play this in the background as we kind of continue to talk through this, but this was a really neat light projection installation that we did here on Nantucket in the fall of 2021. This is a highlight reel of that event. We have the full length video as well we can share. And we were on the back of this patio here of our local theater. So it was a collaborative effort between some local arts organizations. The building that we're projecting onto is a woman by the name of Ginger Andrews. She's a 5th generation scalloper from Nantucket, who lent us the front of her shanty, which is still a working scallop shanty that, you know, many people are often in there shucking, to do this projection, which showcases, as you saw, the various high tide storm surges that we've experienced here in Nantucket, through an there was a bit of artistic creativity based on our actual height of that building. But the idea was there, and we also ran through the student visuals so that we weren't just showcasing the projections and the storms that have happened, but again, kind of including that hopeful lens of, you know, this is where the storm has risen to, and this is probably where it might go. But through some of these adaptive ideas, we might still be able to look, you know, if not exactly the same, somewhat similar, at least occupy that space in a similar or perhaps even better way. When we were in Narragansett last year, we teamed up with folks who were already doing this mural. It was the Avenue PVD, for anyone who's familiar with that public art organization. They're really fantastic. They had teamed up with Warren, Rhode Island, the Arts and Cultural Commission there, to commission this artist Josie, who's really incredible, to do a beautiful mural that was inspired by Elizabeth Rush's book, Rising. She has another book coming out, if it has not already come out, highly recommend. And we actually had a connection to Elizabeth Rush, so we said, well, we'll jump in and we'll bring the coffee and pastries and bring some copies of Elizabeth's book to hand out. And Elizabeth ended up biking over from Providence that day. So it was a really nice community event, and just kind of a touch point in that community. Bob Ruley, you saw in that video, was a real rock star, a community advisor last year, who always believed in the power of student work and community engagement with students, and was a huge advocate for that. We also have some photos from our exhibitions over the years. So these first group of photos is the exhibition we had. This is in partnership with the Nantucket Historical Association, who so graciously gave us their second floor space for 6 months while they were kind of in a transition phase. And so we displayed the student work, which was really incredible. We had over 2,400 people through that exhibition. But beyond that, we thought, well, while we're here, kind of surrounded by all these great ideas and inspirations, why don't we use this as a community space? And we brought in as many speakers, book club conversations. We called them actually coffee climate roundtables, and had just local experts. So everyone, you know, this is Julie Jordan, a really fantastic local landscaper, who does all sorts of native planting and is really a proponent of that in a way to be more sustainable and resilient in your own yard. You know, some of this no-mow, these meadows, and does a great job of trying to encourage her clients to follow suit. And Dr. Jack Ahern on the right gave a presentation, maybe the same day or if another one, but very similar. He has a book out. He's with UMass Amherst, and just fantastic. These are some photos from our exhibition last year in Providence. As Charlotte said, Senator Sheldon Whitehouse was there on the opening night of our program, which was really wonderful. Another rock star and real fearless leader on some very important issues, you know, fighting day in and day out for all of us. And these are a lot of the students and faculty. That's the Syracuse team with the two of the planners from the town of Wickford, Rhode Island. They worked very closely together. So there's a lot of relationship building and networking that happens throughout this. You know, that these challenges, that's really fun to kind of see all come together at an event like this, where the students can show off their work and be really proud of what they've put together. And this is another little kind of climate coffee chat in Providence with Save the Bay, the Nature Conservancy, and a partner organization, 11th Hour Racing. So we're really excited. We feel as though New Bedford and Fairhaven is the place we've connected with the most community members and organizations. So I imagine we'll have lots of examples next year of the kind of events we've had throughout these two communities.
I know we've thrown a lot at you, but if any of this sounds like exciting and you want to keep in the know, there's plenty of ways to partner with us. If you're interested in being a community advisor, we've attached our emails to the bottom. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on sustainability and climate change in New Bedford and Fairhaven, or on the South Coast in general. We are going to have a lot of great community events coming up in the next few months in New Bedford and Fairhaven. So if you want to look on our website, sign up for our newsletter, or follow us on social media, we'll be posting a lot about those events, so stay tuned. And then you're always welcome to read about our work on our website. Our news and stories blog features a lot of the press releases that we do, stories from ashore, blog posts, and interviews with local community members. We just published one interviewing lifetime fisherman Rodney Avila in New Bedford, if anyone knows him. So we welcome any and all engagement, and we hope you enjoyed the presentation so far.
And we're happy to answer any questions, whether via chat or otherwise.
I just want to thank you so much for this amazing work and presentation. I'm from Rochester, from like kind of born in Providence and have lived in southeastern Massachusetts my whole life. I teach at RISD and Brown, and I didn't know about this initiative, and I've been like traveling a bit in Europe, like learning a lot about systemic design, in similar things, but really wanting to see, I feel like I found a community here that like you really care about this region a lot, and it just like it gives me a lot of hope that a lot of I think I love it that you're using like project-based learning, creative projects, and really tying it into local engagement. It's really what we need. And so I just wanted to say I'm really grateful that it's been going well this last 3 years, and yeah, I mean, I guess the question I had was, I think you're approaching it the right way with like, we need conversation. We need to build relationships, and showing what the future could be is the way to change mindsets, habits. If you could have anything more from the output of it in terms of continued dialogue and continued, like, I'm wondering what more could you use, and where does it become hard to translate these visions into kind of practice? And then also wonder about like continued dialogue, like for example, when the Narragansett project ended, is there a way to keep the conversations going? Is there ways to do that? Because it would imagine that like you gain a lot of excitement and a lot of energy and a lot of knowledge about these things, and then how do we keep it going? But yeah, those are just some questions I had. Some
enthusiasm and for the questions. We ask ourselves these same kind of questions, in our meetings, and I think, well, one of the reasons that we've remained within the Northeast right now is to better understand how we can effectively continue that dialogue. And the thinking was that, rather than just jumping down to Miami, for example, or out to California, that staying within this region could help us do that. We try to we have a great engaging presence on social media. That's why we brought Charlotte on board, and have really done our best to improve our external communications to keep people engaged. It's been an interesting experiment when we move from one location to the next, that we have found that people, fall off a little bit when it's no longer talking about their community, which is very understandable. There are so many issues facing each community every single day that need our attention. And so it's quite understandable that, we lose some of that engagement when we transition from Nantucket to Narragansett. We might have a few folks who are still following along and joining our Zooms or events, but, they're kind of Nantucket focused, and the same goes for Narragansett Bay and these neighborhoods. So it's a question that we are always coming back to, and we don't have all the answers at the moment. But sticking regionally at this point in time is how we thought about that. And I think your other question about, what other output could come of this. Oh, you're on mute if you had a follow-up.
More like kind of, because I think the output you have is amazing for like that time period. It's stunning. I'm just wondering, you had like officials from the town come, you had multiple stakeholders, and you know, maybe that's what's required, continuously doing this. What is your experience from how does that like translate into kind of policy? Is it just creating more conversation, and how does that look like for you?
I think you're exactly right. It's more conversation. You know, I don't think you can, the amount of, I just was at a select board kind of special meeting this afternoon about a very specific plan on a very small section of an entire island, only on one community in one, you know, region on one state. And these things take an incredible amount of time and energy and bandwidth and years to get past. This is, we're still in a very early design concept of this one kind of critical artery that's always underwater, and it's a nature-based solution working with Scape Landscape out of New York, and it's a very slow process. And I use that example because I think, to your point, that we have to continue talking about it, and as much as we can continue to bring these visuals to the forefront and aid in that conversation, the more that it becomes top of mind for those people who might not be involved in it every single day. And I think to some degree that kind of pressure and that you can't ignore something that is a great idea and continuously being brought to the forefront. And I think we are certainly not in the business of informing or changing policy, but we've hoped that's kind of been a co-benefit of work like this, and that the needle is slowly moving through these conversations and community engagement efforts and town meetings and all of these things that, you know, maybe in the next decade or sooner, or another decade after that, that some of this policy does change, and that maybe it can be pointed back to some of this work.
I don't see these projects as academic projects or student projects. I see them as actually real living work that is like very important. And I'm hoping that the stakeholders involved and everyone in the community I think they will recognize that, because and the last bit I'll just add is that the idea of like, maybe you could have like local stewards that are of that place, that are also part of those teams with the students that are working, so that when they leave the project, there's a core group of stewards that will help to continue to work on it. That could be an idea.
That's an excellent idea.
That are from that region. Yeah. Okay. I'll follow up with you more later. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
There are two quick questions in the chat, and then Amy has her hand raised. But the questions in the chat, one was about funding sources, and the other was if you've spoken yet with Coalition for Buzzards Bay.
Two great questions. So ReMain Nantucket is the organization that runs the Envision Resilience Challenge, and ReMain Nantucket is part of a larger network of the Schmidt Family Foundation. So we're a family foundation who we do philanthropic work here on the island, and as Laura said in our description, we have our ReMain Venture side of things. So and we also have our ReMain Nantucket side of things, which is our nonprofit work, and that's what the Envision Resilience Challenge falls under. So we are uniquely positioned to put significant resources toward a project like this. All of our teams, our university teams, we provide studio stipends so that they can travel to the site, so that they can acquire materials they might need for their final product. Perhaps it's, paying an honorarium to a speaker that they would like to bring in that we might not have already established for our schedule. And on the Buzzards Bay Coalition piece, we have spoken, I think, twice with them, and they're fantastic. They're doing work on, they're restoring, that island on the Fairhaven side. And I think that's going to be done come fall, which will be a great hands-on experience and kind of real-time learning for the students. So we're working with the Buzzards Bay Coalition, and they are just terrific stewards of all of their properties, and the work that they do is just fantastic. And it looks like another great recommendation for our group. And I don't know if we've connected with Resilient Woods Whole. So maybe, Jackie, we could either follow up with them ourselves, or if you'd like to connect via email, if you know them, that could be great. And Marsh Island, thank you. It's Marsh Island.
Amy, did you want to ask a question?
Thanks. I'm just wondering, I sort of thought tonight there would be more of strategies for dealing with ocean rise. I know you won't have student designs out for another few months for this area, but it seems to me that the questions usually are around retreat or raising structures up. And raising structures up usually doesn't include a whole lot of reasoning around flood storage, flood slowing, and it's when you raise structures up, you're not planning around cars not being able to get there because of flooding, or not being able to be parked there. It seems like there's a whole different envisioning involved in climate change that I wasn't sure I was getting from what you were putting out.
Those are great, great points, Amy. And you know, the students do. We could have taken a real deep dive into the student projects, because we probably have anywhere from 12 to 25 full projects at the end of each of these challenges. And while we've shown you really the kind of, you know, beautiful visuals, it's an entire comprehensive look at what either a specific parcel or a stretch of street or coastline will look like. And they do take into consideration, you know, because we've asked them to plan for 2060, 2080, 2100. So actually, as Charlotte pointed out, you didn't see many cars in those visuals. You know, they're rethinking entire ways of transportation, ways of occupying spaces. Okay. So I think you actually would be really interested in following along with our lecture series, because we do bring in folks who really dive into the nitty gritty of what are strategies that we can use. You know, is this a place that we might have to consider retreat at some point, because no matter what kind of adaptive strategy, whether it's flood proofing or raising or green infrastructure, you know, it just won't do at a certain point in time. So that's, we didn't want to get too in the weeds tonight, but I think our lecture series you'll find quite interesting with all of that. And I would also encourage, you know, the final jury reviews when the students present, those will be recorded as well. And that's when you'll get, you know, they each have about 45 minutes or more to present. So they have time to really dive into the strategy and the why behind why they chose, you know, adaptation versus retreat or whatever it might be.
Well, I'll be very interested to see what's proposed for Fairhaven, which is where I live.
It's a beautiful town, and we've got it's the team from UVA, School of Landscape Architecture, who will be looking at Fairhaven, and Michael is outstanding. He's the faculty lead for that. So I hope that you get to meet him at some point in this process.
Okay, thank you.
I would love, Claire and Charlotte, if you'd share kind of why you decided New Bedford Fairhaven was rather than just New Bedford. Because it, you know, it seems like an interesting choice. I'm excited about it. I live in Fairhaven as well, but I'd love for our participants to hear more about that.
Oh, that's a great question and a great story. Charlotte, you want to take it? You want me to take it?
Sure. I'll start us off. Yeah, I think the fact that New Bedford and Fairhaven share a waterfront on the Acushnet was a huge factor, and considering that they are so closely linked geographically by the two highways and the bridge. I think, yeah, a lot of the sort of trying to figure out how to work the waterfront in addition to all the offshore wind projects coming in. I think that was sort of an interesting challenge that we were curious about exploring further. Yeah, and I think trying to bridge the two communities and talk about both of them together seemed like an exciting prospect to us. Claire, feel free to add any details to that.
So that's exactly it. We really from the beginning were interested in how the two communities, you know, New Bedford was kind of the first place on our map, and a lot of folks had said I think New Bedford would be a great exploration. But as Charlotte said, as soon as we looked at the map, as soon as we were there in New Bedford, you know, we knew that we couldn't only look at the New Bedford side. There's a lot of give and take between the Hurricane Barrier, of course. There's a lot of give and take between the two communities when you look at the hard infrastructure on the New Bedford side and the, more low-lying green that you see on Fairhaven. And, we've had lots of conversations with Gordon Carr at the Port Authority there. And he's actually the one who really encouraged us to include Fairhaven in the study this year, which was an excellent recommendation and a real no-brainer once we actually got there. And I think moving forward, it will be, more critical than ever for these two communities to work together on solving a lot of these really big challenges. So I think we're still trying to understand the relationship between the two communities, and we'll be really curious as to how the students interpret that and what they might suggest moving forward.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for our guests? We only have about 5 or so minutes left. I don't want to go over, but can you share what the first couple lectures are going to be?
Absolutely. I actually will drop them in the chat so you can all see. I might get a quick. I'll tell you about our first opening night of the lecture series. We actually have several locals. I'm not sure for those of you who might know Catherine Duff, who is very involved. She's a local architect. She has the Studio to Sustain. She's very involved with the CEDC, the planning board. She's behind the retrofit of the YMCA. And we met her around the same time as we met Laura. So she's going to be kicking off our lecture series and speaking along with Allison Smart of Probable Futures. Skylar Reese, she is a young New Bedford high school graduate who is now studying in Cambridge. And she's going to give kind of a different perspective from the other generation of what it means to be from her community and how she sees New Bedford and Fairhaven's future. From there we have, we actually have a kind of a workshopping speaker on one of our September lectures, where it's actually going to be a real led by a group that's teaching the students community decision engagement strategy, and how do you have these difficult conversations? How do you manage stakeholders? So I think that's a nice segue from all these conversations we've had tonight, that's a real critical piece of this for the students. So we have Lily Song. She's at Northeastern University. This is for the week on affordable housing and equitable opportunity. The following week, we have trends in climate modeling, adaptation, and migration. This would be a great one. Amy, I'm not sure what you want to tune into for some of those strategies moving forward. In November, we'll be talking about infrastructure and designing and engineering with nature. Again, this is those landscape green infrastructure solutions, living with nature rather than against it. And then we'll wrap the semester with a conversation on sustainable design and regenerative technologies. And I'll drop this list in the chat for you all. And those will be, as we said, uploaded right here on this page shortly after the recording is downloaded.
Great. And we do have one final question from Elise. How often do the recommendations, like in the past in Nantucket and Narragansett Bay, confront state law and policy changes, or is it usually municipal government involvement that is sufficient?
So it's both. We do have the students understand both local, municipal, and state, and even to some degree national policy as it might relate to grant or funding opportunities. But again, we do not necessarily hold the students to all of those policies and regulations. We would, prefer that they think out of the box and then come back down, when it might be time to create a shovel-ready project later in their future. But to answer your question, they're well aware of all, both local, state, and federal.
Awesome.
And I just dropped the link to our newsletter if anyone's interested in signing up and following along into the chat. It's also on our website. I hope everyone, stays tuned.
Yes, and I'll be sure to include links to all of the, upcoming speakers, the speakers after they get posted in my newsletters that I send out through Climate Reality. So if you're already getting my emails, you will continue to get information about what's going on with Envision Resilience, and you'll but if any of you are interested in getting more involved and you're interested in you know, being possibly an advisor, or you know someone who would be a good advisor, or you have some sort of idea that you want to run by Charlotte and Claire, they're just great for bouncing ideas off of. I've had a few different Zooms with them where I've just kind of talked about all the things that we're doing here in Climate Reality and in the sustainability committee work that I do for Fairhaven with Anne, Richard, and various things. And it's been really cool to see all the connections with the other people that they've talked to. So it's neat that I think we have this group, we have this amazing opportunity where we have this, you know, the Envision Resilience Challenge here on the South Coast, and we're going to get some really cool outputs from it. We're going to have some really awesome conversations, and there are going to be some things, some connections that are made, and hopefully some changes in the future, thanks to work that you're doing. So thank you so much, Claire and Charlotte, for being with us tonight. And thank you to everyone who attended, and to anyone who watches this recording later. I'm so excited you were able to be with us. And all the information is in the chat. So I will also send out some of this information later, but hopefully you clicked on the links that you need. And if you didn't, just email me and I'll give you whatever you need. So thank you so much for coming, and have a wonderful night, everyone.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you
all
so
for
much for
having
having
us.
us.
Laura.
Have a good
Good to see
night.
you all.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks.